Hey guys, oh, Instagram is still telling you that we are live. Great stuff. Okay, Mxolisi, I see you. Let me just add you quickly. Please accept the invite. Toro, I will touch quickly on Cape Town as soon as Advocate Mxolisi has joined. I think it's very important just for one to give an update. It's a very, set state of affairs. You guys an update as to what is happening in the city of Cape Town. Okay, so Mkhulu to view. Sorry guys, we're just getting Mxolisi to join and go live with me just now. Just give me a sec.
Okay.
Okay, I can hear you, but I can't see you. Hi, Lindy. I see you. Hi, Tseho. Welcome. What's happening on your end? So
I
there's a
can
request.
see and hear everything, but unfortunately, it appears I cannot be seen.
Are you joining using a maybe a laptop or an
I'm
iPad or
using a
something?
mobile device.
Yeah, that's quite strange.
I don't know. Is it? Aren't you the guys holding all the keys?
No, I sent you an invite. I said I'm going to go live with you. So please accept the invite. That's just going to come through now. Mxolisi, are you getting the invite?
Yeah, I know I'm not getting the invite. I am joining the. Let me see how it works.
I have invited him. Naledi, welcome.
Okay, let me try using a different phone. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Welcome everyone. There's 33 people on this live session. I appreciate your time and your indulgence. Mxolisi has been moved by technology. We'll just give him a bit of time. The topic for today, we're discussing intellectual property law. So your copyright, your entertainment, and all those type of things. And we're hoping that you will push other things. Okay, Glo, I think we'd have to start because I'm really not
We can
seeing you.
start. I think I can see myself now. I've accepted your invite, so we can move forward.
Okay, I can't see you. It would have been great to see you, but nonetheless, I think we are being dealt with one way or the other. Sorry, Mafetu, it's old age kicking in. But on a serious note, thank you very much, everyone, for joining and making time. I know that. So if someone says they can't see me, or maybe it's telling Mxolisi, for example. Yeah, it's quite ironic. IP lawyers inability with technology. It's crazy. Guys, I'm having two things and people here who are coming with their silly comments. I'm going to ignore them and I'm going to block them. No one is entitled to my assistance. I think that's very important. I don't have to be assisting anyone for that matter. But if people are going to try and hijack this to ask me about an issue that they could instruct their own attorneys and stuff, they must do that. But on this platform, it's totally different, and I'm not going to entertain any of that. So this is what I'm going to do. Okay. Great stuff. I've done that. I'm going to keep dealing with them. So please bear with me about, and sorry. Let's see about that. My brother, I see you. Welcome. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I apologize for the delay and sorry about these unwavering Twitterazzis that think they can have their way here. So, on today's IG session, we are going to just talk about intellectual property law. And, you know, you probably have an idea what IP is and stuff, but I thought, as I do with these type of sessions, get someone who's in the field, someone who's practiced, but more importantly, it's about imparting knowledge and at least empowering. So when I reached out to Mxolisi, you know, she was keen to do this with me and share what ordinarily he would be charging if you were to just go and ask him for a memorandum or otherwise. But he's gladly agreed to at least help and impart some of the knowledge this evening. And I just want to read you Mxolisi's brief bio. This is just a high-level bio. There's more to Mxolisi than what I'm going to read, but it goes as follows. He was an attorney with Adams and Adams, and those who know Adams and Adams, they will know that it's a specialized intellectual property firm. He represented RISA, Summers 12 and 13. He represented Loris. He was a guest lecturer in copyright. He's also featured in the Destiny Power of 40. And this is, you know, Destiny Mag and business as an example. He has experience in mining and manufacturing as an in-house counsel. He's an advocate and a member of the Johannesburg Society of Advocates. And in his spare time, Mxolisi is a cyclist who makes sure that he tags you and reminds you that you need to get fit. But welcome, Mxolisi, and thanks for making time. Mxo, are you there? Hello? My gosh. Mxolisi, can you hear me? Hi guys, I am really trying. I'm not sure what's happening. I see all of you here. I've read Mxolisi's bio. I'm just going to
I
call
am
him
here.
shortly.
I'm
Okay.
back. Yeah.
Okay, great stuff. All right. Yeah, I agree that we need to do a webinar or Zoom call because this is just a bit of a situation. Reggie, I see you. Welcome. But I've just read your bio, and I was just introducing you, and thanks for making time. It's just unfortunate that we're not seeing you. But just before we kick off and just talk about this specialized area of law, I just wanted to update most people relating to the city of Cape Town. Most of you would have seen the recent evictions in Khayelitsha conducted by the city of Cape Town, and one of those most horrific videos where a gentleman was really dragged naked and humiliated in front of the entire world, which was very unfortunate. I picked it up after some time where you know, it was already trending, and I think it was Ivan Jim who had put this thing up. And when it comes to issues of, oh, there we go, thank goodness. Yeah, go show us there.
Okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to show. I can definitely hear you. I think let's just carry on. I think it's more the voice that's important.
Okay.
Than anything else, yeah.
Cool, you had connected. But what I was saying in terms of the city of Cape Town is we had the city of Cape Town evicting people from Khayelitsha, and ultimately Mr. Kolani was then embarrassed and really just dragged throughout Khayelitsha in full view of everyone. I saw that tweet from Ivan Jim, and really, because for me, you know, it was either I retweeted or take out a separate tweet and one would not see what is happening, and I just quoted the tweet, and I really just went in with the view of this nonsense by the city of Cape Town has to stop. Well, there you are. The nonsense by the city of Cape Town has to stop, and more importantly, those officials need to be held to account. Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine. I'd fashioned some kind of device here that will sort of hold because I am in, as you know, I am unmarried, so I don't have anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I'm in the middle of
Okay.
cooking. So so I fashioned some kind of device to hold me, but I think I can see you
Okay.
now,
I
and
can
then we
see
can
you.
go.
Everyone can see you. They can see the comments. But just to close out quickly on the city of Cape Town, we've reached out to the gentleman, and I spoke to the wife. They will be providing me with further details as to what has happened. But the approach really is we are proceeding, and we are going to proceed with legal action. There's 6 attorneys already that are going to assist with this matter for free, and the strategy is going to be various in terms of suing the city, the officials in their personal capacity, instituting court action regarding this purported court application that was an eviction order. But the long and short of it is we are going to do what we can to ensure that there's dignity, restored to our people. And secondly, we are going to also make sure that we try and coordinate your donations and stuff, because as you can see, with COVID-19 becomes difficult to do that. So we have people on the ground, and they are doing our best to get those details, and the next couple of days we'll be communicating. So that's high level City of Cape Town, and if there's a representative from the City of Cape Town, just tell them that we are coming and we are going to do our part in terms of dealing with them. Moving to tonight's agenda, thank you again. We are going to talk about this area of law that is very complicated and stuff. But I think, from a general perspective, we just have to start with high-level issues and what IP is, amongst other things. And I'll tell you why I think we have to just start with basic definitions and stuff like that. Often you'll hear people talking about, my IP. At times, people sign contracts and there's an IP clause there. People don't understand it. In fact, what we normally do is to go to where there's remuneration, and you just then basically look at what they paid you. And then when you leave, you develop a concept or an idea, and then you're like, this is my idea. Take a typical example of Nkosana case with Vodacom as an example, right? There's an issue of intellectual property there and stuff, and there's various legalese in terms of when did it vest and otherwise. But I think the purpose for today, we are going to make sure that we keep it informal, but it's just really for you to talk in general terms what IP is, when does it arise, what is copyright, for example. We see also musicians dying poor, for example, but they become these biggest hitters. What seems to be the problem? Is it because they don't understand the law and stuff? So that's just high level what we are going to discuss. But I have specifics that I would want to ask you is, if you were to explain to someone who doesn't know anything about IP law and the need to protect it, what would you say it is, and what this thing of licensing would refer to?
Tumi, thank you very much, and certainly thank you for hosting me. I think the point is that we start in the beginning. I heard your introduction whilst I was still struggling with technology.
Yeah.
And I'd like to sort of correct, well, sort of make a point. You said, where will one go if one was to come to me? As you know, I'm a member of the bar, so I work through instructions. So for anyone to
Yes,
speak to me, they'll have to get an intervention of an attorney. And today's
absolutely.
discussion really is just a general commentary on the specific, as you requested me, on the specific topic
Yeah.
that is being the law. So basically, intellectual property is one broad and certainly complex area of law that is normally practiced by specialists. The definition is that it is a result. It is well, one important definition of it is that it is property.
Yeah.
That is as a result of creativity. Naturally, with property in if you are to engage in property in a business, it'll be sort of your goose that lays your golden egg. So it's the thing that you make one with. naturally you can't just, you must know what you can use to protect it.
Yeah.
And there are various, your question is actually extremely wide. I can answer it in an hour.
Okay.
So there are various categories. There are various categories of intellectual property. There's patents, there's trademarks, there's copyright, and one of the other important one is actually something called trade secret.
Okay.
Naturally, as an asset, trademark, it can be hypothecated, it can be used as security, and I've certainly seen trademarks being sold in execution. So it is actually property. It's just intangible or not, well, whatever the English term is.
100%. And thanks for that, because now you're talking about the various areas and subsets of intellectual property, for example. But let's get onto this issue. And you'd have seen, for example, as I said, with musicians, dying poor as an example. You've recently had topics on Twitter, people talking about masters, ownership of those masters, people being exploited by record labels. What is it that artists can do to protect themselves? And really, does this exploitation work or exist? You would also remember that you and I had an off-the-record discussion relating to McCarthy, for example, and wanted assistance here and there. And one was to try and see what was happening at the time. But there's a huge, view in terms of exploitation of artists by record label. There's issues relating to masters and ownership thereof. What are these things? What are these masters? How does this thing work from a music perspective?
Okay, so naturally it is a historic thing. I'm assuming you're going to talk about technology at some point or another.
100%.
So well, back in the day, even now, so how it normally works is that a record label will give you an advance. And within this advance, you will then record, depending on whether they pay for your studio time, then they will pay for your marketing, then they will pay for your videos and all these things. I always made an example of, for example, they can give you $1 million and then say, it's a risk, and then say, record, and the song can be a hit and it can be a miss. Yeah. So when it becomes a hit, then, well, whether it becomes a hit or not, that advance must be recouped by the record company.
Right.
So as the music gets exploited, the record company then sort of recoups as it goes, and half the time they don't recoup, and most of the times they do. So my own, personal opinion is that sometimes, that criticism, well, more often than not, that criticism is unfair, because it's a risk. When I was still an attendee, I was advised, like a soccer contract. When a soccer player comes within a team, no one knows who they are. And I can tell you, an entry-level player at Chiefs isn't on the same contract as Parker. It moves. So a similar situation arises in music. So in some other cases, there is an instance where someone becomes a hit. And when you become a hit, you will then find that you're still on your old contract. Whether you like it or not, no matter how much money you're making, the record company took a risk with you and they still must recoup their monies. And I think what normally informs, and I don't want to start fights here, but what normally informs the outrage is well, I'm not saying no one is exploited or someone is, but it's always the question of knowing or not knowing what is the case within those sound recordings. So masters are basically what the record company would have paid for and then will then exploit and giving that advance, marketing money, promotions, all sorts of things in between.
100%. And thanks for that. I think, as you said, this is also another, just on this aspect only, where we can talk about it for days and provide specifics and stuff like that. But technology is coming up, right, in terms of protecting the so-called IP and stuff like that. Does it make sense to use or rather rely on technology as part of protecting one's IP as an example, or I could just get in, go onto YouTube, and just become, a hit ultimately.
Okay. There again, when as I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking maybe we should have it in categories
Yeah,
because it's a variety of things. So, for example, if
100%.
you are creating within, one of the things I didn't say is that within a specific work, there are various other protections then that come from it. So, for example, you can have within a writing, you can have different types of protection.
Yes,
However, what you must always look at with platform is know obviously what content you're putting out,
yeah,
and two, because that is not your content, and in my humble opinion, the law hasn't caught up with that specific area of law as
yeah,
to whether it's a broadcast or not. But I won't bore everyone who's here with the legalese of that. I think the best thing a person can do is to know the T's and C's of that particular platform they're using. Like this interview, for example, I haven't
yeah,
read the T's and C's. So if I'm putting out content here, you may find that the T's and C's of this platform is saying that I'm giving away this content
to
to the
Instagram.
platform holder,
Yeah, yeah,
to Instagram or to YouTube. I think the last time,
yeah,
well, I'm not going to talk about whether I read the T's and C's or not,
yeah,
but I do think other platforms do, as soon as you log on, as soon as you put up the content there, you've virtually given it to them, or not just to them, but you've made it freely available for the public to download. So I'm
100%.
just saying what you always need to do is that you always need to familiarize yourself. Firstly, I think first and foremost is always knowing what you are protecting. Because you have the time to get people to say, oh, so and so stole my idea, this and that. And
Yeah,
then as you consult, you then realize, oh,
there's
this
nothing there.
wasn't really an idea, there's nothing to protect. And
100%.
then that brings us to the next sort of category, which is trade secrets, which is also an important thing. I'm just going to jump
And
off here.
for sure. And before we even get to that, right? And I agree with you. And I want us to talk about ideas being stolen. And you see that on social media. In fact, some of the people on this comment that I've just said they're misbehaving, the allegation is a TV channel stole their idea and therefore help or do X, Y, and Z. And we'll get to that, right? Amongst other things. But what is also clear and what we see, for example, is you'll hear someone talk about trademarks, this mark, it's my trademark, or I saw my logo being used elsewhere and stuff like that. For a lay person, what and how would you define a trademark? And do you register it? Is there protection associated with it? And what would you say in relation to trademarks?
So a trademark is the wide definition of a trademark, certainly nowadays, especially if you look at jurisdictions like the US, where it's getting wider and wider. Trademark is basically a tool that a business or a person can use to distinguish their products or services from those of the competitors. That is as lay a definition as you can get.
Yeah, I hear you. So it's exactly that. So if I have, with my friend, comes up with an idea, put it up, and suddenly it's a trademark, does it have to be registered, or it's
Okay,
something that
so
basically happens?
it ideally, the cleanest and the quickest and certainly the most effective way of protecting your trademark or your that logo or that representation or that tool, because in recent days we've seen things like chimes being registered,
Yeah,
is to register it.
yeah,
However, the process it's a wide process. So, for example, you can register a mark. You must first apply for it. You must first process that you search. You do a search to see if there's anyone who has a
similar.
confusingly
Yeah,
similar mark. You then apply for it. Then it goes through the motion. So as it's going through the motion, at
yeah,
some point it then gets open to the public,
yes,
for the public to oppose to it. So the
yeah,
mere fact that, and I've certainly seen, unfortunately I can't comment, I've certainly seen letters of demand from people I thought would know any better that were couched as relying on one protection when it's actually the other protection that they are to be relying on. So you only
100%.
get trademark protection, which is the statutory protection,
Yes.
once your trademark is registered. However, prior to the trademarks being registered, depending on your use of the mark and how long you've used it, you can get what they call common law rights to that mark.
Paul, you know, in terms of common law, someone is sitting here and they look at the law as the law, you know, common law rights, right? Because you spoke about registering and your statutory and common law rights. At basic level, if we talk about common law rights, and as an example, what would that look like? For example, what would be a typical example where you say at least this person has protection or rights associated, and it stems from the common law?
Well, each case will depend on its own merits. But basically, how you then decide on whether this protection it's worthy of protection or not, well, that it must, you know, the other person must be trying to take unfair advantage and trying to sort of, I'm trying to avoid using legal terms here, trying to make out to the public that their mark, or at least confuse the public into thinking that it's related or it is indeed your mark.
100%. And I get you, and we see that. So, for example, if you take brands like Nike or so, these are well-established brands, and we know that what it looks like. And, you know, if one was to come up with something similar facing elsewhere, people would then say they've used it for such a long time, we can identify with it and stuff like that. But now that we're talking about Instagram as an example, right? So Libu is talking about in terms of registering that it's advisable. Common law rights can be difficult and expensive to prove, and I agree with that because, you know, at times.
And I'm glad that they've highlighted that. I certainly would have I couldn't have said it better myself, because 100%. Common law rights, you have to prove a whole lot of things. Sometimes you have to prove that it's well known. Sometimes you have to actually show that the public will be confused into thinking that one mark is the other. So thank you very much, Lebu.
Yeah, 100%. And thanks for that. You know, and now that we are on Instagram, I want us to talk about photography and issues of ownership, right? So what you then find sometimes, there's a photo on Instagram that gets dropped. We take it from Insta, we suddenly push it on Twitter, and it goes viral and stuff like that. And people come back and say, but yeah, you didn't credit me and stuff like that. What's the, you know, IP related stuff with regards to photography and ownership, just on a basic level, and who owns what, and we can make various examples like your wedding magazines, your website pictures and stuff. But if you could just speak about a high level on photography, because we live for Instagram and suddenly our pictures are out there.
Okay, so I like I said earlier on about talking about the T's and C's of the platform that you are using, and I must say we are literally moving on all these topics at 500 kilometers an hour, if I may. So like I said, you know, each topic can literally take its own hour, for example. Correct. So photography is, I don't know the T's and C's of Instagram. And whether if you are sharing, remember I spoke about the T's and C's earlier on, whether if you are sharing a picture on Instagram, you are sharing it, whether you're giving up your rights for people to use freely or to download, I'll have to, well, you'll have to think about that as you're sharing. But photography generally, and in my lectures, it's actually been quite a topic. It forms part of the protection that is protected within the Copyright Act called artistic works. Yes. And I see leadership has made a request here.
We are going to address that.
So it forms part of the artistic works. And you know, photographers don't like to hear this, but whoever pays and commissions the photo actually owns that picture. So, for example, if you have
in simple sort, I have to intervene. Whoever pays and commissions the photo, I take a picture now and let's say Pumi, for example, drops a picture, you know, of training or something for that matter. what does that mean? Whoever pays and commissions that would get that. Well, how would that arise, amongst other things?
So the photographs is typically work of some or other commission,
Yeah.
and the example I made was that of a wedding picture.
Yes.
So it becomes Pume's random picture becomes a bit more complex, and I wouldn't want to get into it now. I don't know if you know the example of a monkey that took an award-winning picture with National Geographic, and it's a similar question.
Yeah.
However, if we take, for example, pictures that are normally a subject of fights,
Yeah.
so wedding pictures, magazine pictures, there are freelancers who will take and then sell that work. Specifically, will take pictures specifically to sell it. And then you do get, certainly if I was to get married and invite a photographer, and I pay them, so I'm the one who commissioned that artistic work. And because I paid them, then those pictures belong to me. And they, well, depending on your agreement with them, as far as I know, I've certainly removed some of their copyright, whatever, because once you put that C and the year, then you're saying it belongs to them. And by copyright law and artistic works and photographic work, it actually doesn't. And half the time, most of them don't know that themselves. So that's always an issue.
So just to close this photography one, because I see questions, Pume is asking if I pay a photographer, they still need my permission to post the pictures as ads for their work, or by merely posting it on Instagram, it's now accessible to the world. If BET or TMZ, for example, takes this thing and runs with it, what's known there? Do you even have recourse, for example?
If you commission a photographer, and a photographer, you pay them, and then the photographer then takes their work and advertises for themselves. That work doesn't belong to them. That work belongs to you, and as such, they must pay you commission. And you must, and with copyright, you must put them on terms. So the best thing you can do is that you, and I know photographers don't like hearing this, but you must just put them on terms and tell them to stop. And there's a wedding that you and I went to. That individual actually did, because the photographer then subsequently put those pictures on their website as part of their advert. Fortunately, those people are lawyers, and then they quickly asked them to take them down and explain the law to them, and the photographers took it down.
100%. And that question of whether we are going to give a performance at the end will be attended to at exactly 5 to 7. But one question though, and what we are seeing is use of hashtags, right? As part of communicating or making sure that one narrows down some information or content and stuff like that. So say someone has been using a hashtag for the longest of time, amongst other things, or a brand, or something like that, and hasn't registered that. Do these people have any protection whatsoever, or it's still conditional on them registering it before they would get it? If, for example, I were to use Diski 99 with Doom, for 3 years as an example, and suddenly this thing blows up and becomes such a big thing, what then are my rights? Will I be offered protection or otherwise, as an example?
Like all good things to me, it depends.
Okay.
So we spoke about the difficulty of proving that the public, because at the end of the day, what you're trying to run away from is the public confusingly assigning your mark to someone else. So what you'll have to prove, and I think I forgot the name of the individual, is that the public will associate that mark with you. I unfortunately can talk about this because it's run through the course in law. I'm actually not going to talk about it now because I'm going to conflating issues. So hashtag, it's the same. If you want to use it as a trademark, it goes on exactly the same it goes through the same hoops or loops or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. It must be registrable, and there are various. We actually haven't even touched on how a mark can be registrable. If it passes and it passes all the tests, passes all the requirements of a mark, you can register it, and then you can get protection. I think that's
Yeah.
another important point which we haven't touched on.
I hear you, and I think we must just also look at. So one of the big things, for example, is our artists in the entertainment industry talking about the regulation to protect the artists. Right? There've been calls on Natim Tetwa to step in and do their part and ensure that these artists are protected. So Madonsela is asking there as to what are your thoughts in relation to these type of things? Are there some level of regulation, or maybe you can just provide a high level view of this protection? I think it's a copyright amendment bill or something like that. What is it, and what does it talk about, without providing legal advice? Because
I
you're not
unfortunately cannot get into that topic.
right.
Because it's a live matter, and
I
I do
understand.
not want to talk myself out of a brief.
No, I agree with
But
you.
maybe in
Absolutely.
another time
I
we
am
can
with you.
get into.
I totally understand, and I agree with you. You just don't want to do that, and this is the nature of things. So you're basically conflicting yourself out, and we're not going to do that. Thank you for asking an interesting thing. Is it easy for one to branch into IT? Basically going from law school, attaining straight up, or would it be wiser for one to gain experience as an attorney first?
To me, it's how long is a piece of string type question.
Yeah,
There are people who get into the bar and fly off from the word go, and
100%.
there are people who come into the bar with a whole lot of experience, and then one of my favorite babies just commented here. I'll address to it later. There are people who I think the question was actually on whether you can specialize as a first year at the bar,
Yes,
as I
yes,
read it.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So specialization in specialization in anything as a first year is a bit of an unfair question,
Yeah,
because you must first, for example, if you're sitting at the bar and you don't have briefs, and someone brings a brief, say for example on a
audit.
topic, say
Yeah,
on labor law, you're
yeah,
not going to say, no, I don't do labor law, I do something else. So you just find your teeth. And there are people who started off on a specialization and they're now doing something else. I can tell you about 90% of my briefs now are not things that I initially thought I went into the bar to do.
100%. And I want to just talk about one aspect, and I'm mindful of the time as well. And just that those people who are trying to cause ricas, they've left, right? And this is
Okay.
exactly that. Pitching to a broadcaster. We've had numerous tweets, amongst other things, where this concept is mine, and this is what it is, and stuff like that. When or how is a pitch, for example, protected, and how can it be protected? What would, as a typical thing, you would need to suddenly be saying, this is my concept and it looks like it, and therefore bang chontshele yona.
Okay. Disposition is a very important factor of predisposition.
Yeah,
I highlight again the issue of knowing what you are dealing with. I think before you even pitch to a broadcaster, and certainly this information I'm giving, and I can tell you to me, I've spoken about 2% of the things that I thought we were going to speak about. This
yeah,
information that I'm giving, I think, is also freely available on the net. So I think
yeah,
the best thing you can do is that you can just arm yourself with finding out what exactly it is that you are pitching, and within that pitch, what exactly is it that is capable of protection? You get questions such as, I've choreographed a dance and someone has stolen it. Is it protectable? You read articles in newspapers
yeah,
about someone saying, no, but no one stole a song. This is a song from God. It's clearly a lack of information on what's protectable or not. So I think that's the best part. The second
yeah,
part, because there's various works within it, and I think the best thing I've seen being done was that it's by way of an NDA. Because at the end of
yeah,
the day, you're protecting whatever you're protecting in you must be able to reduce it to material format in order for it to be protectable. You can't, for example,
Material
just say
format.
no. I told him about my idea, so therefore it's protected. So you
Yeah.
must reduce it. It must be capable of being reduced to material form in some or other way,
And
and
on
then in
that,
that way,
yeah, and on that point, would it being reduced in a material format, a Facebook post be reduced into a material format? So, and then I'll make an example, right? I suddenly drink water in this thing, you know, and use a straw as an example. This is a but I use a straw. Suddenly, someone else as a podcaster suddenly just does this, but doesn't use the straw or uses something else as an example. Would I then come up and say, but you know, I think I'm the one who started this thing with a straw. You then did something else, and therefore you stole my pitch or idea, and I put that thing up on Facebook. Would that make sense? Will it go anywhere for that matter?
There is that famous case of a restaurant that said one other restaurant was stealing their ambience.
Yeah.
I think the important point is that you must know what is protectable or not. From where I'm sitting, you know,
Yeah.
drinking with a straw is I don't know. You make up your own mind as to what that is. So
Yeah.
it's always a question of informing yourself.
Yeah. No, I hear you, and I totally agree with you. But you know, with these live sessions, at a certain time, I think after an hour, it suddenly shuts off, and I think I've seen that. I'm not sure if it's going to be the case, but online content and the Internet of Things, you know, how can people protect their online content amongst other things, and it being reproduced?
I think at the risk of sounding like a broken record, too, the most important part is knowing, and all this information is freely
Is
available.
yeah.
Is that knowing what within your work, what constitutes protectable work? For
Yeah.
example, me sitting and drinking a cup, is that protectable work?
Yeah.
And once you take that content and you put it out there, you then need to know the terms and conditions of their platform that you are using.
Yeah.
Because you might think you're protected, and then the platform sort of says, no, it's really, once you put it here, it's free for us to do whatever we want with. Yeah.
100%.
So I think the best thing, and you'll certainly see from big companies who have IP advisors and all people in between, I think the best thing to do before you put anything out there is to always inform yourself and just know what is protectable and what is not protectable. And it's also, you know, an unfair comment on the predisposition of a person who comes up with an idea.
Yeah.
Because I always ask people what's 100% of nothing. Because as you're putting it out there, someone might have the funds and the capability to exploit it, which you might not.
Yeah.
For example, so as you put up that content, it's not necessarily unfair to say, you know, let's reach some kind of commercial arrangement as to how we can go about, you know, looking at exploiting this work for the benefit of both of us. Certainly, the institution of I own everything and I am everything. You know, if someone was to say, let's manufacture bicycles, he spoke about me talking about cycling, and put my name on it. I can't, for example, say, no, I want to own everything on that, but I know nothing about selling bikes. I know nothing about distribution channels. So there might be someone. So I spoke about IP as property. So you must always look at it in that form. As an asset and property that had to be protected and exploited and all these things in between.
Yeah. So someone is here. Zolani, check. Hi, Mr. Swan. Because you are touching on protecting the work of artists, I'd like your views regarding the concept Moja Love stole from a young man named Obakeng Kok. Moja Love stole his concept. Zolani, tell us more insofar as how did this happen? What happened? What is the context there?
No, you do me wait before Zolani tells you that story.
I know.
The best thing to do, because we don't know what's the story, will be to
Yes.
consult a legal practitioner and then, for
And then
example,
take
Moja
advice.
Life
Yeah.
absolutely to defend that claim. And now that I've spoken about it here, so we
I
can't
get you.
talk about
No,
we
no,
can't be
I
talking
accept
about
that.
Moja
No,
Life
no,
and
I accept
necessarily
that. No, no, I
yeah.
accept that. In fact, it's also not going to be fair for them insofar
Mm,
as them not having a right of reply and stuff, and all of that. So I think we need to address Pume's request. And I want to just demonstrate something here. Pume is asking that in the last 5 minutes, 3 minutes of the show, one must be in a situation where they demonstrate if they're with your PS5, or is it PS5? Yes, or something. But the question
mm.
is Pume still here? Because I doubt. It seems like her Wi-Fi is acting up.
I also do not see her, but in any event, I think your condition to the act being performed was that we had to see some sort of proof of purchase. So
100%.
failing her to give us
Absolutely.
proof of purchase, the act cannot be performed at this moment. Maybe it'll be deferred to a later stage.
100%. And I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of time, but well, just as closing and in closing, and just without even going into detail, on 5 points that if someone was to at least catch the last part of this, what would one say, from an IP perspective, high level, amongst other things? Because obviously we are limited in terms of time and stuff, but if you were to
Mm.
just summarize issues of protection and stuff, how would you close this one out?
I think the important part is to know which category of IP your ideas falls in.
Yeah.
And before you even move forward, you move forward with it. Know what you must do first. It's one of those grudge purchases that you better invest in when it starts because it
Yeah.
becomes more expensive. And I think it was Balu that rightfully pointed out to prove that it belongs to you at a later stage. So you must first find out within which category you belong and then find out how you can, like I said to me, this hour is certainly not enough. I feel like I haven't said a thing.
No, I know
So you
because
must
we
find
just
that. You must find out that which category of work it falls in, and then you can move on from there and find out whether it's protectable, whether me
yes.
sitting here drinking coffee is protectable,
Yeah.
and how best you can protect it and how best you can exploit it. One of the other things that I certainly didn't speak about was licensing, because
Yes.
once you,
Yes.
for example, you
Yes.
can register a clothing brand, and then say, for example, you can't really label as a mark, but you can't really exploit it. You can license it out for a limited period, say to someone who can, and then still get those rights back because it belongs to. Say you can license it for 5 years, for 10 years. You can get different. Like I said, it's property. It's
Yeah.
like you can lease your car to someone. So that's one topic. Also, it's quite a big topic that we haven't touched on. But be that as it may.
100%. So no, I appreciate it, and I think what we can do, and people must either send us messages here or on Twitter, insofar as maybe revisiting this. And what we can do as well is just to limit it to, for example, if we're just doing trademarks, just do one thing on just trademarks. As part of a discussion, and then the next
Okay.
30 minutes would be something else. If we are doing
I can.
music or something like that, we can do that, because obviously in terms of time it's just not sustainable. It's all over the place. But I think the point here is there is so much insofar as intellectual property is concerned. There is an important thing to do, that one needs to equip him or herself insofar as understanding what is protectable and what is not protectable. And I think there's definitely an opportunity to continue this conversation and empower. For me, ordinarily this hour was not wasted. I think it touched on various things. And the last parting shot on my end was, when we get into these platforms, your Twitter, your otherwise, you also have to just look at the T's and C's, because you will sit here and you say, I own that thing. Until when you signed up, you've literally relinquished your rights in relation to that.
Okay. Perfect to me. I again need to point out as people send you questions that I can have a generic discussion with you, but I
100%.
can't give legal advice, certainly to the public.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
And my engagement is not mainly, but is exclusively through attorneys. So I can give general commentary. You will, as an attorney yourself, know how to sort of package those queries into a sort of general discussion we are having now, general
No,
commentary
absolutely.
from my part. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And thanks to everyone. I mean, there's been 45 people who've been on this session and have listened and looked into it. I think, you know, it's an interesting area of the law. And if you are able to kill it and do your part in it, you in my view become distinguishable, you know, amongst other things. So let's continue engaging. Let's come up with views and topics for discussion. I mean, someone wanted to discuss the green economy. It's a big thing now in terms of climate change and stuff. I'm looking at hosting that session soon. I have no idea what it is, and for me, what these sessions do, they also empower me and give me, you know, some information and what these things look like. So if you do have some suggestions, what you'd like to see, and if you're an expert in your field, you know, talk to us, let us know, and then let's take it to the next level. So yeah, thank you everyone, and thanks for tuning in. On those Puza thing, you need to obtain legal advice, you were told, so we'll leave it as such. Thanks. I'm going to save this live session. I'll also probably just drop you a link of the saved video so that you can have it also on your platforms. But I'm definitely going to save this thing on my IGTV for people to be in a position to look at it a little later for those who've joined later or otherwise.
Perfect. Thank you
Great
very
stuff.
much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Sure.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Oh, Shine, didn't even propose a song. How are we going to do things? Guys, I have to go. I have another call. We'll organize a twerking session. Thanks, guys. Cheers. Sharp. You guys can log off. Okay, 29. I'm going to wait and see. Okay, 25. So, yeah, people are logging off. Okay. I'm really going to set this one out and see how many people are going to be left. It's 20 now. Or maybe someone wants to go live. What do they have? Okay, perhaps not. Cheers, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Hey, Ashante Parker wants to be in a live video. What are we going to discuss? Cheers, guys. I'm going to log off. Like, seriously. Now. Well, nali data, ne? Abolazak. They're not logging off because of data. The grant. Let me save mine and go. Just kidding. Sharp.